Psalm 46. God is our refuge and strength.
A helper who is always found in times of trouble.
Therefore, we will not be afraid.
Though the earth trembles.
And the mountains topple into the depths of the sea.
Though its waters roar and foam.
And the mountains quake with its turmoil.
There is a river. Its streams delight the city of God, the holy dwelling place of the Most High.
God is within her. She will not be toppled. God will help her when the morning dawns.
Nations rage. Kingdoms topple.
The earth melts when he lifts his voice.
The Lord of hosts is with us.
The God of Jacob is our stronghold.
Come, see the works of the Lord who brings devastation on the earth.
He makes wars cease throughout the earth.
He shatters bows. He cuts spears to pieces.
He burns up the chariots. Be still and know that I am God.
Exalted among the nations.
Exalted on the earth.
Yahweh of hosts is with us.
The God of Jacob is our stronghold. The Book of Ruth.
In the days of the judges, there was a famine in the land. A man left Bethlehem in Judah with his wife and 2 sons to live in the land of Moab for a while.
The man's name was Elimelech, and his wife's name was Naomi. The names of his 2 sons were Mahlon and Kilian.
They entered the land of Moab and settled there.
Naomi's husband, Elimelech, died, and she was left with her 2 sons.
Her sons took Moabite women as their wives. One was named Orpah, and the second was named Ruth.
After they'd lived in Moab for about 10 years, both Mahlon and Kilian also died. And Naomi was left without her 2 children and without her husband. She and her daughters-in-law prepared to leave the land of Moab because she had heard in Moab that the Lord had paid attention to his people's need by providing them food. She left the place she had been living,
accompanied by her 2 daughters-in-law,
and traveled along the road leading back to the land of Judah. She said to them, "Each of you, go back to your mother's home. May the Lord show faithful love to you as you have shown to the dead and to me. May the Lord enable each of you to find security in the house of your new husband." She kissed them, and they wept loudly.
"No," they said to her, "we will go with you to your people."
But Naomi replied, "Return home, my daughters. Why do you want to go with me? Am I able to bear any more sons who could become your husbands? Return home, my daughters. Even if I thought there was hope for me to bear sons and have a husband tonight, would you be willing to wait for them to grow up? Would you restrain yourselves from remarrying? No, my daughters. My life is much too bitter for you to share, because the Lord's hand has turned against me."
Again, they wept loudly, and Orpah kissed her mother-in-law. But Ruth clung to her.
Naomi said, "Look, your sister-in-law has gone back to her people and to her gods. Follow your sister-in-law."
Ruth replied, "Do not persuade me to leave you, or to leave and not follow you. For wherever you go, I will go, and where you live, I will live. Your people will be my people, and your God will be my God. Where you die, I will die, and there I will be buried. May Yahweh punish me and do so severely if anything but death separates you and me.
When Naomi saw that Ruth was determined to go with her, she stopped trying to persuade her.
The two of them traveled until they came to Bethlehem. When they entered Bethlehem, the whole town was excited at their arrival, and the local women exclaimed, "Can this be Naomi?"
"Don't call me Naomi. Call me Mara," she answered. "For the Almighty has made me very bitter. I went away full, but the Lord has brought me back empty. Why do you call me Naomi, since the Lord has pronounced judgment on me, and the Almighty has afflicted me?"
And so Naomi returned from the land of Moab with her daughter-in-law, Ruth the Moabitess. They arrived in Bethlehem at the beginning of the barley harvest.
Now, Naomi had a relative on her husband's side named Boaz. He was a prominent man of noble character from Elimelech's family.
Ruth asks her mother-in-law, Naomi, "Will you let me go into the fields and gather grain behind someone who allows me to?"
Naomi answered her, "Go ahead, my daughter."
So Ruth entered the fields and gathered grain behind the harvesters. She happened to be in the portion of land belonging to Boaz, who was from Elimelech's family.
Later, when Boaz arrived from Bethlehem, he said to the harvesters, "The Lord be with you." "The Lord bless you," they answered. He asked his servant who was in charge of the harvesters, "Whose young woman is this?" The servant answered, "She's the young Moabite woman who came back with Naomi from the land of Moab. She asked."
"Will you let me gather fallen grain among the bundles behind the harvesters?"
"She came and has remained from early morning until now, except that she rested a little in the shelter." Then Boaz said to Ruth, "Listen, my daughter, don't go and gather grain in another field, and don't leave this one, but stay here, close to my female servants. See which fields they are harvesting, and follow them. Haven't I ordered the young men not to touch you? When you are thirsty, go, and drink from the jars the young men have filled."
Ruth bowed with her face to the ground and said, "Why have you been so kind to me, although I am a foreigner?"
Then he said, "Everything you have done for your mother-in-law since your husband's death has been fully reported to me. How you left your father and your mother and the land of your birth and came to a people you did not previously know. May the Lord reward you for what you have done, and may you receive a full reward from the Lord, God of Israel, under whose wings you have come for refuge."
"My lord," she replied, "you have been so kind to me, for you have comforted and encouraged your slave, although I am not like one of your female servants."
At mealtime, Boaz told her, "Come, over here, have some bread, and dip it in the wine sauce."
So she sat beside the harvesters, and he offered her roasted grain. She ate and was satisfied and had some left over.
When she got up to gather grain, Boaz ordered his young men, "Let her even gather grain among the bundles, and don't humiliate her. Pull out some stalks from the bundles and leave them for her to gather. Don't rebuke her."
So Ruth gathered grain until the evening. She beat out what she had gathered, and it was about 26 quarts of barley. She picked up the grain and went into the town, where her mother-in-law saw all that she had gleaned. Then she brought out what she had left over from her meal and gave it to her.
Naomi asked, "Where did you gather barley today, and where did you work? May the Lord bless the man who noticed you."
Ruth told her about the young men she had worked with and said, "The name of the man I worked with today was Boaz."
Naomi said, "May he be blessed by the Lord, who has not forsaken his kindness to the living or the dead." She continued, "The man is a close family. He is one of our family redeemers."
He also told me, Stay with my young men until they have finished all of my harvest.
Then Naomi said to her daughter-in-law Ruth, "My daughter, it is good for you to work with his female servants, so that nothing will happen to you in another field."
So, Ruth worked closely with Boaz's female servants. She gathered grain until the wheat and barley harvests were finished, and she lived with her mother-in-law.
Naomi said to her daughter-in-law, "My daughter, shouldn't I find security for you so that you will be taken care of? Now, isn't Boaz our relative? Haven't you been working with his young women? This evening, he will be winnowing barley on the threshing floor. Wash, put on perfumed oil, and wear your best clothes. Go down to the threshing floor, but don't let the man know you are there until he has finished eating and drinking. When he lies down, notice the place where he is lying. Go in and uncover his feet and lie down. Then he will explain to you what you should do."
Ruth replied, "I will do everything you say." So, Ruth went down to the threshing floor and did everything her mother-in-law had instructed her. After, Boaz ate, drank, and was in good spirits. He went and lay down at the end of the barley pile. Then she went in secretly, uncovered his feet, and lay down.
At midnight, Boaz was startled, turned over, and there lying at his feet was a woman. So he asked, "Who are you?"
"I am Ruth, your slave," she answered. "Spread your cloak over me, for you are a family redeemer."
Then he said, "May the Lord bless you, my daughter, for you have shown more kindness now than before, because you have not pursued younger men, whether rich or poor. Now, don't be afraid, my daughter, for I will do anything you ask, because all the people in my town know that you are a woman of noble character. Yes, it's true, I am a family redeemer, but there is a family redeemer closer than I am. Stay here tonight. In the morning, if he wants to redeem you, that's good. Let him redeem you. But if he does not, as the Lord lives, I will. Now, lie down until morning."
So she lay down at Boaz's feet until morning, but got up while it was still dark.
Boaz said, "Don't let it be known that a woman came to the threshing floor." Then he said to Ruth, "Bring the shawl you are wearing and hold it out."
Then he shoveled 6 measures of barley into her shawl, and she went into the town. Where she saw her mother-in-law Naomi, who asked,
"How did it go, my daughter?"
Then Ruth told her everything Boaz had done for her and said, "He told me, 'Don't go back to your mother-in-law empty-handed.'"
Naomi said, "Wait until you see how it goes, for he will not rest unless he resolves this today." Boaz went to the gate of the town and sat down. Soon, the family redeemer he had spoken of passed by, so he called him by name and said, "Come over here and sit down."
So he sat down.
Then Boaz took 10 of the town's elders and said, "Sit here." And they sat down. Then Boaz said, "Naomi, who has returned from the land of Moab, is selling a piece of property that belonged to our brother Elimelech. I thought I should inform you. Buy it back here in the presence of those seated and in the presence of the elders of my people. If you want to redeem it, do so. But if you do not want to redeem it, tell me so that I will know, because there is no one other than you to redeem it, and I am next after you."
"I want to redeem it," he said.
Then Boaz said, "On the day you buy the property from Naomi, you will also acquire Ruth, the Moabitess, the deceased man's wife, to perpetuate his name on his property."
Then the Redeemer replied, "I can't redeem it, or I will ruin my own inheritance. You redeem it for me. Take my right of redemption, because I can't do it."
At an earlier period in Israel, a man removed his sandal and gave it to the other party to make any matter legally binding regarding right of redemption or transaction of property. This was the method of legally binding any transaction.
So the Redeemer removed his sandal and gave it to Boaz and said, "Buy back the property yourself."
Boaz said, "You are witnesses today that I am buying back everything that belonged to Elimelech, Kilion, and Mahlon. I will also acquire Mahlon's wife, Ruth, the Moabitess, as my wife, to perpetuate the deceased man's name on his property, so that his name will not disappear from among his family or from the gates of his house. You are witnesses today."
Then the elders and all the people at the gates replied, "We are witnesses today."
"We are witnesses today."
"May the young woman who is entering your house be like Rachel and Leah, who together built the house of Israel. May you be powerful in Ephrathah, and famous in Bethlehem. May your house be like the house of Perez, the son Tamar bore to Judah. Because of the offspring the Lord will give you, by this young woman."
Boaz took Ruth. And she became his wife.
When they were intimate, the Lord enabled her to conceive, and she gave birth to a son.
The women said to Naomi, "Praise the Lord, who has not left you without a family redeemer today. May he become well known in Israel. He will renew your life and sustain you in your old age. Indeed, your daughter-in-law, who loves you and is worth more than 7 sons, has given birth to him." Naomi took the child, placed him on her lap, and took care of him.
The neighbor women exclaimed, "The Lord has given Naomi a son," and they named him Obed. He was the father of Jesse, the father of David.
Now, this is the genealogy of Perez. Perez fathered Hezron. Hezron fathered Ram, who fathered Amminadab. Amminadab fathered Nahshon, who fathered Salmon. Salmon fathered Boaz, who fathered Obed. And Obed fathered Jesse, who fathered David. From the Gospel according to Matthew. Boaz fathered Obed by Ruth.
Just gonna make a V.
Obed
One on one side,
fathered Jesse,
some on this side.
and Jesse
All right.
fathered King David. Then David
Some more this way. So we
fathered Solomon
here's 1, 2,
by
5, 6,
Uriah's
7, 8, 9,
wife.
11.
Solomon fathered Rehoboam. Right here. Oh, sorry. Solomon fathered Rehoboam. Rehoboam fathered Abijah. Abijah fathered Asa. Asa fathered Jehoshaphat. Jehoshaphat fathered Joram. Joram fathered Uzziah. Uzziah fathered Jotham. Jotham fathered Ahaz. Ahaz fathered Hezekiah. Hezekiah fathered Manasseh. Manasseh fathered Amon. Amon fathered Josiah. And Josiah fathered Jeconiah and all his brothers at the time of the exile to Babylon. Then after the exile to Babylon, Jeconiah fathered Salathiel. Salathiel fathered Zerubbabel. Zerubbabel fathered Abiud. Abiud fathered Eliakim. Eliakim fathered Azor. Azor fathered Zadok. Zadok fathered Achim. Achim fathered Eliud. Eliud fathered Eleazar. Eleazar fathered Matan. Matan fathered Jacob. And Jacob fathered Joseph. The husband of Mary, who gave birth to Jesus, who is called the Messiah.
The Messiah.
This is the word of the Lord.
Thanks be to God.